Edith Childers Edwards, the oldest daughter and child of Robert and Beverly Childers. I was born June 18, 1956, one day after Father's Day. For 66 years I've had my father in this world I've celebrated that birthday, either on or during Father's Day week. So Dad and I equally shared a special celebration during that time frame. Until I was 6 years old, we lived on the Bible Grove farm that had been in my father's family for several generations. I'm the only child who attended in Bible Grove, their one-room schoolhouse, with one teacher for 1st through 8th grade, which is amazing to think about that in today's world. My young parents were learning their child-rearing techniques with me, whereas with my brother, 9 years younger than I, they had their child-rearing techniques all figured out. So I tell that because halfway through my 1st grade year there in Bible Grove, we moved to Flora, as my parents no longer wanted their children to attend a one-room schoolhouse. From that point on, all 4 children were raised in the same house on 3rd Street here in Flora. There are countless traits I can describe my father, but if I were to describe the number one trait, I would say he had the special gift that he never met a stranger, and he could strike up a conversation with many people from all walks of life and all ages. I went on 2 different cruise trips with him as an adult with my parents, and both times he made long-lasting friendships with those at the dinner table. These people would send Christmas cards to my parents for many years to come. My husband only attended 1 cruise trip with me, and it was along with my parents. And after the first night, we were stationed at the dinner table with a newlywed couple. And after the first night, my husband privately told me, "Your dad talks too much." So he said, "Those newlyweds, he's interrupting their vacation here. We are going to a different table along with your parents. You're going to make sure your parents get to this different table." But what ended up happening when we entered the room, the newlyweds are waving my dad, please come back to our table as we're trying to go to a different table. So my husband had it all wrong, and he didn't understand this gift my father had. I always wanted to have that gift since I've worked my entire life as a professional counselor, but I was never as gifted as my father related to meeting strangers and conversing with them. But I certainly did try. I learned from him as a role model. Dad's wisdom and words of wisdom existed through me my whole life. He had some favorite sayings as he grew up, which many of you likely know. Just take one day at a time. Just say nuts to it. And the Hawaii symbol for hang loose. In his younger years, he was an avid reader, primarily of the Bible, the Upper Room, self-help books with a religious emphasis, and the local Flora newspaper. One of his favorite authors of all time was Jimmy Carter, which had nothing to do with his presidency, but instead was about his philosophy of life, words of wisdom, and spiritual emphasis to life. Dad journaled for over 20 years of his life on a daily basis. If one looks at those diaries, one finds out what was important to him. Each day he would tell if he took a walk, how far he walked, and who he met and who he talked to, which ones of his children called him that day, and what was Mom doing. But he also always mentioned if he conversed with his brother Larry for the day. It told if he went in the woods, and if he did he find any mushrooms. My father was an outdoorsman and was the happiest with being out in nature. A favorite for him was entering the woods and more off the beaten path. If it was more off the beaten path to him, it was the better. Always at the top of the list was to find edible mushrooms. I have, there on the East Coast, I have the wetlands in my backyard. And in there, there's plenty of poisonous snakes, fox and deer, and on an extremely rare occasion, you might find a bear, actually. He knew that, but he had no fear of it all. He seemed to see the gifts in nature. He seemed to understand the squirrels and the birds so well, it was as though he could converse with them and they understood each other. They had this secret language. He also understood the beauty of flowers, and that's something very personal with, particularly with me. I'm not sure about others, but I admired that trait about him immensely, that he really had this major appreciation of the flowers. He would love to have seen all this. My dad touched a lot of lives in Flora since he lived in the area his entire 90 years, except for when he went on vacations and a few brief times. The town of Flora was a part of who my dad was, and in terms of where he lived. He was always the happiest if he was in Flora. He enjoyed his vacations because he would meet new people, etc., but he always was fond to come back. For a goodly part of my life, I have a suitcase of memories related to my father, because in the past 38 years, it's always involved a suitcase to get to see my parents. He always wanted his children to live close by, at least near Illinois, so repeatedly throughout his life he would try to sell me on moving back to Flora. But it never seemed to be in the cards for my life. So that suitcase of memories for me, of course, has a degree of sadness. But on another level, it's some of the highlights of my entire life, as I would spend such high quality time together with he and my mother. Several times he would tell me that Mom and Dad's lives centered around all their children, and he equally made all of us feel very important to him. At the time of Dad's passing, I want to tell us a story that what happened, which was quite unbelievable, but it is a witness to God and a testimony, because I don't feel God, that he left this world alone. As many of you know, I sell movie star photos, so I'm packing photos on a daily basis. It's more of a sideline business. I'm actually a professional counselor for the U.S. government, but on this side, I'm packing photos each day. And there was a 5x7 photo of Ava Gardner. And often when I pack 5x7 photo, I have this pile of empty photo folders that I'll put on top of that photo to kind of better cushion it between the cardboard. And so in that pile, and this is within 15 minutes of Dad's passing, it's either exactly when he passed or within 15 minutes before. This photo, without the cardboard, but this photo was in a photo folder. And of course I cried 1,000 tears at the time, because I felt it was a sign from God that he wasn't alone. This is Norma Henson, his oldest sister. She looks like an angel, as one can see. It was, I understand, one of the last professional photos ever taken of her towards the end of her life. My mother had given me that photo around the time that she passed away, which was July 2018. I believe it was July 21, 2018. So I don't know what I did with that photo. Maybe I did make a mistake and put it in what was supposed to be empty photo folders. But what's miraculous about the story is the timing. I almost packed that photo the day before and didn't. But the fact that it was found 4 years later in that pile of what was supposed to be empty photo folders is truly a miraculous story. So I, at the time, said, I can't wait to tell my mom and Bobby about this photo I found. I said, I'm going to eat first. This is 1:30 p.m. when I finished that packet, Eastern time. So it would have been 12:30 Central time on Tuesday. I said, I'm going to eat first. I haven't eaten all day. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to call my brother and mom and let them know what miraculously happened here. And before I can get it out, my brother calls me 15 to 20 minutes later. I'm still eating. And before I can get out what happened, he's telling me that our father has passed away. So I share that story with you. I think it's a wonderful witness. My dad would have loved the story. I think it's a very comforting story that we don't totally understand, but it lets us know we're never really alone, either in this life or the next. And so it does bring great comfort. In conclusion, I want to say a big thank you to our mother for taking such good care of our father and always putting him as number one priority. She was always there for him in the good times and the bad, and always stood beside him. She is a true inspiration to all of us, for someone that was married for 67 wonderful years to our precious father. I want to say a big thank you to our brother, who made countless trips to Florida for the past few years, and has always been a support to both my parents for whatever they needed. I know they wouldn't have known what they would have done without him. He would drop whatever he was doing, including the very last time he came out, when he found out he was needed, and always placed and continues to place his parents at the top of the priority list. My father needed my brother, especially in the last few years, and Bob was always there for him. I thank Laura for faithfully calling Dad on a daily basis and placing him as top priority. He so looked forward to her phone calls, and she truly was what he would say was the apple of his eye, as Dad would say. I thank Tracy for giving Dad joy and making him laugh. They shared countless stories together that only they could understand, but Lum and the goats and all the other stories brought great joy to both of their lives. I thank Larry for being that special brother that Dad admired so very much, and he was very close to Dad's heart always. I did not know what to say about myself, and that's the hardest thing to do. And I did just find out what to say here, because my mother this past weekend gave us all colored pinwheel drawings to each of his children that he had made in 2020, and they were addressed to each child, and he gave a message to each child on the pinwheel. He told me on the artwork what I did for him. This is an exact quote. "She has been a good girl. She has taught me a lot about life. She is the girl that bought me these colored pinwheels." So it goes full circle in life. Dad taught me and all his children so much about life and his words of wisdom. So I feel honored that he felt the same towards me, that I taught him a lot about life. We love you, Dad, with all our hearts for all time. You shall always stay close in our hearts forever. Thank you for all the memories, all the suitcase of memories, but I thank you most of all for being you.